The new year is here, so it's time to get creative again, and to do that you need to be organized. The beginning of the year is always the time for me where I spend a little bit of extra time going over my files, going over everything that I use in the studio, and organizing everything a little bit better so that I can be more productive in the new year. So today I want to go over my template, and the theme and the update since my last template video really has come down to minimalism. Before, what I used to have, for example, is on the master chain I would have 2 Max for Live devices, one of which was supposed to be for autosaving and the other was for adding clip actions to a shortcut key. What that essentially means is that it added these shortcuts here to a toolbar that would pop up whenever you hovered on the clip and pressed a certain key. Now I no longer have these Max for Live devices as they were both pretty finicky. The one that did the autosaving just plainly didn't work. The only thing that I could get it to do was pop up an alert, which was usually pretty distracting. Whereas for that other toolbar thing, I just didn't really use it. I just found myself out of habit going into the clip itself and editing directly from there. So since I wasn't using them and I wasn't finding any productivity with them, I decided to delete them completely, so that there's no more clutter on my master channel. Now I don't often go in here because my actual master channel is in here anyway, and I usually master in my mixing project, which is different from the production projects that this template would be for. Now for all of the tracks that are in here, one of the things again that I want to point out is the minimalism. As you can see, it opens up like this, so all of the groups are fairly close together and they're all collapsed except where the song is supposed to be written. So I can immediately go into writing a track and I have all of my groups, all of my organization already there. And these just go directly into my master out channel, which is right here. And this is just the one that I use for mastering. Before that, I would have a routing group, which I no longer have because I no longer need it. What I used to do is have analyzers on there, and then I would be able to have multiple of these groups and dive a little bit deeper into organization. But I found that in 99.9% of the times, it's just nice to have these 7 groups in here, and it just standardizes everything from project to project. Now, I do have some other tracks that help me along. I have my length track. This is a pretty new addition. This is just there for a MIDI clip, so that I can encompass the whole song. And if I quickly want to loop the whole song and play through the whole song, I can do with a little keyboard shortcut. Just press Ctrl L on the MIDI clip and then you can start playback. My other helper tracks have stayed pretty much the same. We have our marker track here for the structure. We have our several notes tracks, which is just there so that I can write down any thoughts that I have about the projects directly in MIDI. So I can say, for example, for this time span here, add cowbell. And then I remember for the next time that I start to work on the projects that I wanted to add some cowbell. Once I do so, I'll just color it green so I know that I have done it. If I come back on the idea and I no longer want to implement it, but I still want to keep the note around, I'll put it red. And if I still need to do it, but I'm like doubting myself a little bit, I'll make it orange. Or if I've partially implemented it and it still needs some fixing. So I have this color-coded system in which I can easily tell what I've done and what I still need to do and what my thoughts are during the production phase. As I said, the marker track, I'll also demonstrate quickly how that goes. We have, for example, our intro. I'll always use the same color for an intro, so that will be this kind of like bright yellowish area here. Let's say that we then have a build-up here, and this is not the scale. I know that the time is a little bit off, but that's okay. I'll have this color for a build-up, and then we'll have a drop right here. Let's go into the drop here, and let's maybe add a fill to it. Let's go for like 2 bars. The fill always will be orange, and I can essentially just build out a track like this. And I can just make the blocks and I'll have the structure neatly on top. And even when it's collapsed, you'll always have a line that just indicates the structure of your track. I like this method a lot more than I like the locators. I've talked about it before, how I find that after using more than like 10 of them, it just becomes cluttery. Especially when you're zoomed out and you're taking a look at the whole project. It can be really hard to decipher what's going on with all of the lines going down. After that, we have our master recording track. Now I do a lot of waveform analysis. So what that means is that I need to record something, I need to resample something. And for that, I just have this track here. I just have to click right here and then I can record. And it immediately records from my master out channel, which is just everything that is happening in the song, excluding the reference track, of course, because that is not going through my master chain. And I can easily record whole sections to analyze the waveform, check out the dynamics, or just use it for resampling something. The final track that I have is my sidechain trigger. This basically allows me to do LFO tool style volume shaping, but with a compressor. So you can see this kind of looks like something that you would see in LFO Tool or Kickstart or the volume shaper from Cable Guys. And while these tools are all amazing, what I've developed here is a special kind of sidechaining that basically allows me to do the same thing, but with a compressor. So this goes combined with a special rack that I have somewhere, sidechain receiver. And I just set the input from the sidechain, and then you just drag it to wherever you need to sidechain. And you just have the controls right here. Now, this isn't something that I usually use anymore. Nowadays, I do opt for more volume shaping usually, especially because having your own sidechain trigger and needing your own sidechain trigger, yes, it is cool. It gives you a little bit more liberty, but you have to keep up with what you're doing with the kick. And you just have to constantly make changes twice. Basically, whatever you do to the kick, you also have to do that to the sidechain trigger. And that's kind of getting annoying. So I usually just move around the problem and work it in either in sound design or use something like LFO tool, as I found it quicker to work with that than using this sidechain method that I have here. This is just in there, so whenever I need it for a particular reason, I still have it in here and I don't have to go looking for it in another project. Speaking about looking into other projects, let's have a look at collections. There's a few different collections in here. We have our main plugin collections. This is all of the plugins that I usually use, and even some ones that I no longer use. I just like to have all of my plugins basically visible at all time. I do need to update because there's a lot of plugins missing. The same is true for this folder. This is a folder that I was going to put all of the sample packs, all of the folders from different sample packs that I usually use. But I mainly decided to go a different route, which is my favorite drums, which is mostly where I use samples, and then some forgotten samples, which are stuff that you might need in a production. So I have some reverse crashes, some risers, some rides. We have some different effects. It's mainly effects and crashes and stuff like that. Some fills that I usually use. I also have some folders in here, some of these big snares. There's some cool stuff going on there. I actually showed that in a recent video where we used one of these big snares. I tend to use them a lot in fills, but there's other stuff that you might forget about. The main idea of this folder is that there's locations and files that you might forget about where they are because you don't use them quite that many times. But sometimes you just need that file so it's quick to find, and then you'll find it in here. So this most used samples, I don't really use it that often. Another one that I don't use quite often is this one. I just find it easier, and I have a little bit more muscle memory going in here in the individual audio effects. And I also have the menu. Before we look into the menu, I do quickly want to talk about this folder right here. These are all of the active productions that I've ever had. So for all of these projects, I at one point decided, okay, I want to make this into a track and finish the track. There are a few in there that aren't actually getting finished and that I've abandoned since. But it's nice to have all of your main projects that you've put some actual time in separated from all of the other projects where you're just experimenting a little bit and stuff like that. Finally is the Max for Life collection here. This is also one that I don't really use that often, simply because I have the menu, which brings us to the menu. And this really is my biggest workflow secret. This is basically my secret weapon when it comes to production. I think that this has sped me up bigger than any other thing that I've ever done in 10 years of production, actually. I can just go in here, click an instrument that I want, and it will just immediately load it up for me. I don't even have to move my mouse away from the track that I want to load it on. And the same is true with effects. If I want to add some dynamics processing, maybe M Turbo Cup MB here. And then if I want to add some reverb, let's go with M Turbo Reverb. And then we'll go with a glitch plugin. I might need to change the order a little bit, but I can do whatever I want. I can take, I don't know, M Transformer on there. And you can see how quickly I can get ideas out there and how quickly I can try different plugins. Because it's just really intuitive. There's this menu set up and you just browse through the menu. And I've been constantly adding to that as I acquire new plugins. Obviously during the Black Friday sales and the end of the year, I've bought myself some new plugins. It is a little bit of a hassle to initially set up, but once you have it set up for your main plugin collection, adding new plugins to it, it just takes a few seconds every time. And it just saves you so much time from going either in here and trying to find it in this massive list, or even worse, trying to remember, is it the VST? Did I install it as VST3? If it's VST3, which manufacturer is it? Sometimes you don't remember that. And you have to go looking for all of these to find the exact plugin name that you're after. Oh, I wanted Black Hole. Oh, it's made by Eventide. Instead, now what I do is I just go in here. I know that I want a reverb. I know that I want Black Hole. I quite remember where it is roughly on the list. And I just get Black Hole like that. This menu feature, by the way, isn't part of standard Ableton. This is part of the Live Enhancement Suite. It also gives me some other things like the ability to just use the middle mouse to move the timeline around like this. And I can move it up and down as well. As you can see, I needed to make a little bit bigger like this. I can see it's moving up and down, it's moving left and right, and it's just easy to navigate. The final group that is interesting in my template is Psyscope here. This is just a preset Psyscope where I can just open up tracks, assign it to the different groups that I need. So I can go in here, I can set this to the first track of my drums, that will be the kick. And then in the bass line, I can go to wherever the bass line is. And that way, if I have a kick and bass, I can just easily open up Psyscope and I can analyze it and do whatever I want with that information. And it's just quick and easy to have Psyscope at hand because I know that I'm going to use it while I'm making my kick and bass. Not initially when I'm starting out the project. Usually I won't look into it until a little bit later once I know that I like the idea. I did a video recently on how I like to get started by building a quick template and then getting some ideas down and then worrying about the details of my kick and bass and my drums. But once I do like the idea and I feel like the bassline needs a little bit of an improvement, I will often go into Psyscope and just tweak it a little bit, maybe already EQ it a little bit and stuff like that. And I'll apply some of the processing, maybe a little bit of stereo processing or saturation. And then having a waveform to look at and to make judgments on to see if the plugins are doing what you actually want them to do. It is quite nice to already have Psyscope inserted into your template like this. So those are the main things that I'm doing for my workflow in 2024. Now there's a lot of other things that I'm doing, small things like file organization and all of that stuff. But I don't think that that is too interesting. Plus it didn't change from the last time that I talked about it. So it's still exactly the same in the way that I'm organizing that. And the same is true for the way that I'm organizing stuff like my sample packs and my plugins as well. So I'm not going to go over that in this video. So that's going to be the video. I hope that you enjoyed it and that you learned something. If you did, let me know by liking the video and making sure that you're subscribed. That really helps the channel. You can also support the channel by becoming one of my patrons or checking out my products on my Gumroad page. But that's going to be it. I hope you enjoyed and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.